Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I am honored to have Kari Pearce with me. Kari is a CrossFit competition enthusiast. She was also named the fittest woman in the world, and she is the creator of Power Abs. And one of her mantras that I really enjoyed and latched on to was, don't count the days, make the days count. So Kari, thanks so much for being on today.
Of course, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's kick it off, and we're going to have to rewind a little bit to start. But at 3 years old, you got introduced to this thing called gymnastics. So talk a little bit about how that came to be and what about gymnastics really excited you and kind of captivated your attention.
Yeah, so I started gymnastics at 3 with my sister because my parents wanted to put my sister in gymnastics. She was 2 years older, and they figured I would be there sitting on the sidelines anyways. So they might as well have me participate. So I started at 3. I also was in other sports. They wanted me to do, I did some softball, I did some soccer, swimming, dance, just different sports. And as I got older, I just wanted to do gymnastics. So I ended up doing it for 18 years. I knew what I wanted. I liked it because there was constant challenge. There's 4 events, there's different skills you can continue to learn and perfect. Gymnastics is all about, doing the toughest skills and doing them perfectly. So I just liked that constant challenge, and that's what kept me going in the sport.
Yeah. So you continued to excel, right? Yeah. We started at 3, but you excelled into high school. You were a multi-time state champion. I believe you were a national champion. So talk a little bit about starting to compete at the highest level. And once again, winning state titles and kind of the competitive nature that might've come out of you during that time.
Yeah. So I actually started competing when I was 5 years old. My mom always jokes around because I was so small that they had to place me on the balance beam most of the time. You have a springboard so you can jump off the board to get on the beam if you need help, but I still was too small for that. So I started competing at a very, very young age. So yeah, I'm just a competitive person. I'm the person, that doesn't play many board games because I get too competitive with that. I've gotten better as I've gotten older. When I was younger, I would throw a temper tantrum and go to my room if I lost. But then at the age of 8, I decided that I wanted to go to the University of Michigan. So I continued to work really hard and knew that I had to be one of the best to end up going there because I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Yeah. And so I was a fan of the Wolverines from a very young age, and just competing a lot and competing against a lot of other good girls. My parents told me that I had to go to the best gym in the state in order to go to the University of Michigan. So I ended up driving an hour each way to go to gymnastics practice 5 days a week. And it ended up paying off when I did go to the University of Michigan. Like you said, I had multiple state championships, some national championships, and that's because I had this end goal of what I wanted to go to the University of Michigan and get a scholarship there. So I knew I had to put in the work because other girls would. And luckily I was able to make it work, and it paid off.
Yeah. So I want to highlight that, just that little snippet that you said, and people might breeze past it, but you're willing to drive an hour each way to go to a gym to get better at your craft. Now, I think something that happens for a lot of people is they say, I really want to do this. And then all of a sudden a roadblock comes up, and it isn't just, driving a block, or it isn't super convenient to do. And all of a sudden they say, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. So talk a little bit about saying, all right, yeah, there's potentially this obstacle, this hour drive each way, but when you really want something, it's not a roadblock. It's just something you have to work through.
Yeah. And I actually am so thankful for my parents as well, because they were willing to make the drive. Yeah. A lot of other parents are like, no, that's too far. I am not going to do it. But I clearly remember talking with my parents when I was 13, because I ended up switching to the gym, right when I was in high school. And we just sat down and had a conversation. My parents were like, we're willing to make this commitment if you're all in as well. You've talked about going to the University of Michigan, and we know in order for that to happen, for you to go to this Division I school, who was Big Ten champions multiple years. I was 4-time Big Ten champion there. So they were an amazing school, and they're great at gymnastics. And my parents knew what my dream was. And we sat down, and I was like, I'm willing to do that. Obviously it's an investment on my end, but also their end. And I remember when I turned 16, they're like, here's the keys to the car, have fun. They gave me a safe, like a brand new car, because my dad worked for Ford. So I got a safe car.
Yes.
So you didn't have to worry about me potentially breaking down or anything. But still driving an hour each way. And that's if there wasn't traffic. So if there was traffic, you know, that added to it as well. But I had this goal in my mind. And like you said, it could have been a roadblock, but at that time I was so determined. I was willing to do whatever it was going to take to go to Michigan.
Yes. Now, something you also said that I'm just curious about was you said at 8, you told your parents, hey, I want to go to the University of Michigan. So was that like the first time you got to go see them live? Did you have a coach that attended, or what was it about being 8 that you remember, this is why I wanted to go there?
Yeah. So part of it actually was that so when you're a gymnast, you peak most of the girls like peaked at 16. Yep. Now it seems like they're getting older, which is actually really cool. Yeah. So when I was young, when I was like 7, my parents were trying to decide if I should go the Olympic route or the college route, because basically at that age is when you have to decide. Since you peak so young, you have to start Olympic training at a very, very young age. So they took me down to Texas, and an Olympian by the name of Dominique Mucciano had a gym. Her father owned the gym. Yeah. So I went down and I tried out at 2 potential like Olympic facilities that had this great elite training program. And if they accepted you, then you could be on the path to become an Olympian. I went to that training and I didn't like it. The coaches were very aggressive. They were like yelling at the girls. And I remember just like going to my parents and being like, this isn't fun. Like, I don't like this. Like, I had a thought of like quitting gymnastics because I was like, no, this is like scary. So that was in Texas. We went there for a week because my mom's brother lived there. So we tried a couple of gyms, came back, and I was like, no, that's not for me. And then at that, like, basically my parents were like, okay, like, so we know you don't want to go the Olympic route. So you want to go the elite route or the JO route, which is like level 10. And ultimately the end goal is some Division I college if you're on the better end of it. And living in Ann Arbor, my parents took me to like some of the gymnastics meets, and it was just so much fun to watch the girls. There's like a couple of girls that like stick out in my memory, but they were the ones that convinced me that I wanted to go to the University of Michigan.
I love it. Very cool. So now as your time at Michigan begins, once again, you had a successful career in high school, and then we transitioned to college and not much changes. Another successful stint of time. In that freshman year, you got a Unsung Hero Award. So talk about being a freshman and getting that award and what that meant to you.
Yeah. So as a freshman, I was used to competing all around in high school, and then all of a sudden I get to college and I'm mainly just doing vault and floor, and I'm like, well, what about like the other 2? Because there was girls that were better on the other events, and like for a while I was like, oh man, I'm not good enough to do all 4. Like I want to work and make sure that I am good enough. But just being like one of the most consistent people to compete, and I think someone that just goes unnoticed. Like on floor, I would be the first girl to go because they want someone first that they know no matter what is going to be able to hit their routine and get a solid score. It's not going to be the best score, but it's going to be one that like is respectable on the leaderboard and starts the meet out right. And then same thing on vault, like they want a good score, one that they know is going to be a clean routine. And so I think that's often a placement that goes unnoticed. So people are like, okay, yeah, there's the first girl. Okay, whatever. It's usually like the last 2 girls, especially the last girl, that gets all the attention, that gets the most noticed. But basically I was just very consistent. Like I never fell. I always was able to put up a solid score. And so then it being recognized at the end of the season was like, okay, like at least like they knew my contribution. It's like me, I'm like such a perfectionist, and I want to be able to like, and you know, you're on the team, like you want to be able to help the team. And I knew I was helping the team, but I was like, still like, you don't get recognition like the other girls. So it meant a lot when I got that Unsung Hero Award.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about the mental side of that, right? So you go from being, the best in the state, the best in the nation, and now you're joining a really good team, and all of a sudden, like, you're still really good, but there's some girls that are performing better than you on your own team even. Talk about just kind of the mental side of that, because I'm sure there is some difficulty that goes into navigating that.
Yeah. So there definitely is some difficulty because like there was a girl in high school, and we were the same grade. And I remember like, we would always go like back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
And senior year of high school, I beat her at nationals, and I was like, okay, like I got this going into college. And then whatever it was, like, I think I peaked right at like 17, like right my senior year of high school, I peaked. And then I was still like really good, like going through college and everything.
Yeah.
But it just, I wasn't the same. I also then ended up getting a few injuries my sophomore year of college, which, I mean, maybe we'll talk about later, but it definitely is like a change. You have to realize that you're there for the team and whatever the team needs you for. It is no longer an individual, like about yourself. Obviously it still is individual because you have to do your routine and you have to do it to the best of your ability, so you get a good score for the team. But in the grand scheme of things, you have to remember, this is a team. This is a team win, a team loss. Like, I'm here to do whatever I can for the team. And if there's other girls that are better on certain events, then they have to be put in. Like, I'm fine sitting out if I know that somebody is better than me, which, you know, ended up being the case on bars and on beam.
So I played basketball in college, and I had a humbling college experience because, you know, coming out of high school, I really thought, man, you know, I should be starting right away. Like, I'm the guy. And I wrote a lot of bench time. You know, I played like minimal minutes, but I wrote a lot of bench time. And I really had to go through like a change of heart of like exactly what you said. It's not about me anymore. It's not about my statistics. It's about the team getting a win. And if that's my role, then I just need to be the best guy on the team that's going to support the guys out there. So for you, how did you kind of internally navigate through that? Because once again, we can learn a lot of life lessons through sports. And, you know, that is one of them.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, balance beam was not my favorite.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thankful that I didn't have to do balance beam anymore.
Yeah.
I love vault and I love floor and balance beam. Like that 4-inch pie piece of wood, you're doing flips and turns and turning flips and all these crazy things. And I was like, I'm totally fine not having to do that anymore. And so but I did like doing bars. It never really like came natural to me. But I remember like my conversation with the assistant coach, who was the one that offered me a scholarship, was like, okay, like, yeah, for sure, you're going to start on vault and on floor, you know, we'll see, maybe all around. But he's like, we have a lot of solid girls in the bar lineup. He's like, but my goal is to get you to compete on bars by your senior year. Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, like I know, like as I was in like the vault and floor lineup, okay, these are good. Like I have to keep working hard to maintain this, but I really have to work hard on bars if I want to get better to eventually compete in the lineup. So it's one of those, it's like, okay, like I took it as a challenge, because it's like, okay, I'm not good enough yet, but he's one of the best bar coaches in the country. And so I was like, okay, like, and if he has this belief in me that I could like potentially compete by my senior year, like that's my goal. So I kind of like shifted it, you know, from it being a negative and what could have been like, well, I'm not any good, like I give up, to being like, okay, well, this is my shot to continue to work and continue to get better, so that maybe by like later in my career, I'll be able to compete on that event.
I love the term that you use. I'm not good enough yet, right? That yet piece, it keeps a person hungry. That's awesome. So you hinted at it earlier. At your time at Michigan, you win 4 Big Ten championships, and you yourself are a 3-time academic All-American, which is, you know, an amazing feat as well. So talk about what that, you know, team camaraderie and, you know, having the success as a team meant to you, and, you know, kind of instilled in you as you, I guess, move forward past gymnastics.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool just from being so individual when you're in high school, and then it really just being about a team going into college. And not just because of gymnastics, but I think also just college can be really scary. Yeah. So even though it was like close to home, I lived away from home. Like I told my parents, don't come visit me unless like I get the okay, because I'm really close. I could, like, my second choice of school was actually Florida, which is really, really far. So I'm like, okay, either I'm going to Michigan and I'll be really close. And that's, you know, where I set my sight on, like, I wanted it from 8 years old, but I'm like, I also want a college experience and to like be away. And it have that college experience. Like, it was amazing having this group of girls that you could like confide in or whatever, because you had the seniors who obviously had been through the other years and like had experience, and then the juniors who also did, and the sophomores, and everyone had gone through what you had gone through. And then you had like I had 2 other freshman girls that, you know, we were experiencing these new things. So it was really cool just to have like your gymnastics family inside of this like big sport community, because I roomed with like a field hockey player.
Yeah.
So being an athlete, like you met other athletes, I was like inside of this like enormous school. It's like these like little like sub families. So it was just amazing to have that community. And then obviously to celebrate the Big Ten championships and things like that with was just incredible.
Absolutely. So as you're transitioning from Michigan in gymnastics, graduate, and fitness has obviously been a part of your life, your whole life, and you decide, well, maybe I'll do some personal training. And as you're doing that, somebody asks you, hey, would you come to this CrossFit gym and teach some gymnastics? So talk about that moment and getting introduced to a new type of fitness.
Yeah. So right a little bit before that, one of my college teammates had been to the CrossFit Games a few times on a team. And even from like right after I graduated, she was like, Kari, you should do CrossFit. You should do CrossFit. And I heard that it had to do with gymnastics. And I was like, I'd done gymnastics 18 years. I'm done over it. I don't want anything to do with it. Like, I want to work out and I want fitness, but I don't want. And she's like, it's not like the gymnastics that, it's handstands. Yes, you do pull-ups and you do like we called them legless and toe bar. But I was like, no, like I'm over it. And then, like you said, I got this email from this gentleman and he called it gymnastics coaching. And I just looked at it. I was like, I'm done with gymnastics. I'd done a little bit of gymnastic coaching as well. I was like, it's just not for me. Like I'm done. And then he knew the gym that I was personal training at. And he's like, I can offer you something better than what that gym is. Cause that gym was like hourly. You only got paid when you had clients. And he was willing to offer something better. So I was like, okay, I guess I should like meet with this guy. So I went and I listened to what he said. Like I said, he was talking about being like a gymnastic coach for CrossFit. And I did a little bit more research. I also ended up seeing it on TV on ESPN in 2014 and watching all of these incredible girls and looking at it and be like, I think I could be pretty good at that. So I ended up talking to the coach the guy who like offered me the job for the gymnastics CrossFit coach. And I was like, okay, I'll start working for you. I had a powerlifting competition in November of 2014. So I'm like, I'm going to stay true to my word and I'm going to do this powerlifting competition. But once I finish that, then I want to try that CrossFit thing.
Absolutely. So try it, you did. So getting integrated into that, it's a different world, right? It's not your typical show up to the gym and do, these 4 lifts. I mean, it's competitive, it's timed, it's pushing yourself. So as you got started, it can be a difficult thing to get used to. So talk about kind of the learning curve for you inside of CrossFit.
Yeah, there's a big learning curve, especially my background had been, I did gymnastics. Then right after I did some weightlifting, I did a physique show, I did powerlifting, and then getting into CrossFit. So I didn't really have any like structured endurance training. And I did a little bit of weightlifting, but still wasn't anything crazy because I ended up bulging a disc in my back, getting some carpal tunnel. And so I did I think it was like 5 months of weightlifting or right around that. And then stopped and did physique training because I couldn't do any squats or deadlifts. I was doing leg extension, leg curls. So then I had to, learn the weightlifting movements again. And from doing powerlifting, I had no mobility, like especially front rack, and like overhead was okay if it was like out far enough. So there was a big learning curve as far as that. And then even I never had been on a rower, assault bike, no, skier, no, running, well, a little bit outside, but nothing like crazy or for time or anything like in gymnastics, we maybe did a 10-minute running warm up, and that was like skips and kind of run, but we didn't know how to run. And I knew strict gymnastics, but I didn't know any of the kipping. So yes, I had like a base of fitness, but there still was a lot to learn.
Absolutely. So 2014, you kind of get introduced to it. 2015 is when you actually start, and you get invited to this event that to you isn't necessarily a big deal, or you don't know the magnitude of the deal. And you happen to tell your parents, hey, maybe, stop by this competition. Your dad's got a layover. So he says, sure, I'll check it out. So talk about what led up to that and then that event.
Yeah, so that event that you're talking about is the CrossFit Games, which is the biggest event in CrossFit for the season, which, like you said, I had no idea exactly what it meant. Like I said, I had seen it on TV, but I didn't know that was the same thing that I like ended up earning a spot to. So I started CrossFit November 2014 is when I like decided to train.
Yeah.
And then the open, which is the qualification for regionals, which is the second stage of the game season. And then you qualify from there, you qualify to the games. So the open was in February, and people are like, oh, are you going to do the open? I'm like, well, sure. I mean, sure. Why not? Like, I've been doing a little bit of CrossFit, and it would just be fun. We had a little team going on in New York. So everyone there was going to do it because they want to try and make regionals. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, they're doing it. I might as well try. And also, I should mention at this time, we weren't even in a CrossFit gym. It was a studio apartment in New York. So every Saturday we would go to a CrossFit gym, which had rings and ropes. Like if you were over 5'5", you wouldn't be able to do like pull-ups from the pull-up bar. Otherwise your feet would touch the ground. If you're like over 6 foot, you couldn't put a bar overhead. So I'm really lucky I was short because I could do like a decent amount of training there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do this open thing. Went through the first workout. It was fine. Second workout. Okay. Yeah, it was pretty good. The third workout is like when my teammates were like, Kari, like you could legitimately like make it to regionals. And then after the fourth workout, I think I was in like, because they took the top 20 from the Northeast and then 20 from Canada East.
Yeah.
I was just outside the top 20, and they're like, okay, well, if you do well on this last workout, you could make regionals, which is a huge, huge deal, especially like, you know, for doing CrossFit for like only a couple months.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing, it was rowing and thrusters. And like I said, I didn't know like whoever like on the rowing machine, I had no idea what pace to hold. My coach is like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I did a few pulls, and I'm like, that. And it ended up working. I think I ended up taking like 16th in the region or something. So I qualified to regionals.
Wild. Absolutely wild. So just inside of that, and I guess, you know, it's interesting that your teammates told you, hey, if you do well, like you could, or if you keep doing this well, you could qualify. So talk maybe about, and I'm sure this has been something that's happened multiple times throughout your life, but the impact of having someone believe in you that it's possible, maybe before you even realize something's possible.
Yeah. I mean, and especially for this, like I actually didn't even know how to qualify to regional. So it was huge hearing them say like, okay, like if you do this, then you'll qualify. So yeah. I think it's kind of cool, like in anything in life, like not even just CrossFit, like any sort of job, or like even with money, like if you save this much, you could make this much or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was really cool just being like, okay, well, if you can finish the top 20 in this workout, then you're going to make it. And it's almost like a challenge, because you're like, okay, well now I have to, like, this is possible. And you think that I can. So, you know, CrossFit better than I do. Like, I don't really know. And if you think that I can, then why shouldn't I be able to, you know? So I do think there is a huge component to believing in yourself when others believe in you. And that's my CrossFit coach right now. I think that's one reason I've been very successful in the sport, is because I've had other people believe in me.
Absolutely. So talk about that first, big competition of the CrossFit Game debut for you. And once again, your family ending up being able to show up for that.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like after I had done regionals and I qualified in third place, so top 5, go to the CrossFit Games, which is about because that was like Memorial Day weekend. The CrossFit Games were the end of July. And I remember having a conversation with my parents, like on the phone, like, oh yeah, like I qualified for this competition. It's in California. It's July, the end of July. I can't remember the dates. Yeah. And my dad's like, oh, I'm going to be over in China, but I'm flying back like on whatever that Friday was. I'm going to fly back and I have a layover in LA. Do you want me and mom to come? I was like, I mean, yeah, it works out. Like, why not? So he ended up flying my mom, because they live in Michigan. So flew her from Detroit out to LA, and they met up. And then I remember they got there, and I was competing like during the day. And then Friday night, I got to see them for a little bit. And my dad, like, he just like looks at me and he goes, how come you didn't tell me this was such a big deal? He was like, I didn't feel like, it didn't even sound like you wanted us to come.
Yeah.
I was like, to be completely honest, I didn't know it was this big of a deal. Like everyone thought it was like really cool that I made it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, even like the number of events and the intensity and everything, like, and doing all these movements, like using sandbags and using wheelbarrows and just crazy things I had never done before. I was like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but it was so amazing having them there. And like looking back, like I did a post a little while ago, like about the different years at the CrossFit Games. And I have a picture of like me being on the floor, and then my mom and dad, like they jumped over to like come over and give me a hug.
Yeah.
And that's like definitely one of the best memories that I have of the 2015 CrossFit Games.
Yes. So that parlays into this whole new love for the sport that is CrossFit, right? And I think people will notice this as we keep telling your story, that if Kari does something, it's all in, right? There's no half-ass in it. Like if we're going to do it, we're going to do it as well as we can. And we're probably going to become the best at it, by the way. So as you transition from 2015 season to 2016 and 2017, you get more national attention and you get to compete at high levels again. So talk about those opportunities.
Yeah. So I'm just going to start for a second in 2015 again.
Yeah.
Because in 2015, I finished in 21st place. 21st place in the world after doing a sport for 6 months. Not bad.
Decent.
Right? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I remember like that. I was like, I mean, I came in like not knowing how I was going to do, what to expect. But then after seeing that, and I was like, there was 40 girls. I was like, I didn't even finish in the top half. Like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you did great. And I was like, no, I didn't. And so, like you said, if I'm going to do it, I'm all in, especially once I got a little taste of it. And I was like, okay, like 21st is like if I would have got like 38th, I probably would have been like, yeah, maybe this isn't for me. But 21st, I feel like is a spot where you're like, okay, like I'm decent and it's my first year.
Yes.
And so then I was really able to like train hard. I knew what I had to work on. I knew what I had to do. So I came back in 2016 and I got 5th place and I ended up getting the most improved award. And I think it was obviously just having basically triple the time of training under my belt. So at that point I had 1.5 years instead of half a year.
Right.
And just knowing what I had to work on, knowing the experience of being at the games, the nutrition that goes into it, the hydration, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I definitely was addicted and all in after that first year, and then just, continued the training and knowledge and everything. I mean, basically throughout my career.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about that 2015 to 2016 year. Like you said, it was a transition of just purely more experience, right? I mean, yeah, 6 months versus 1.5 years, but you also mentioned that there was a different way you were training. There was a different nutrition routine. So talk about, what kind of changes it took for you to, get to that peak, or not peak. That's not even her peak, guys, but to that echelon of being 5th best that year.
Yeah. So I like training to the 2015 regionals and games. I was training like 2 hours a day, basically, more or less, right around there. But to the 2015 regionals, and then it might have been like 2.5 hours training into like the games. And then after that, I was like, okay, we need to up it, the intensity and the volume. I mean, when you start out in any sport though, like you don't want to just like completely annihilate your body, because that's when injuries happen. So it's like being smart and like, introducing my body into the sport. And nutrition, I still didn't know a lot about, because I followed something similar to physique, which is way different than eating for performance versus eating for how you look. So I remember changing my eating habits around. I was just like eating more. And then I ended up starting to work with RP Strength, the nutrition company, because I was like, they reached out because Nick Shaw actually went to Michigan. So I was like, we had that connection, and he just threw like so many more carbs in my diet, less protein. Fat was a little bit lower, but more or less the same, but just having more carbs for training. And then obviously in a competition is huge. And then me and my coach, like we were just more familiar with CrossFit, because similar to me, he was brand new into CrossFit as well. He was from the strength and conditioning world. So we were both learning this new sport. And I think just learning more and being able to train more and push my body more and recover, right, is really what helped me excel that second year of CrossFit.
Yeah. So not only in 2016 did you win the most improved award, but you also won the Murph. And you said that was a pretty darn cool thing. So talk about that. I mean, one, what it took to be prepared for that. Two, what your actual time was. And, some of the listeners may not be CrossFit folks, so maybe explain what the Murph is.
Yeah. shoot, I'm put on the spot. I actually don't even know my time. Shh, don't tell.
I'll look it up. I'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect. I was like, I could look it up real quick because people always ask me, and I'm like, I don't, like, my coach, he could probably tell you. Like, he can tell you a workout that I did 3 years ago that had running, like wall balls and heavy, or like handstand push-ups or something. Like, he's really good. Yesterday, I have to write it down, otherwise I forget yesterday's workout. But Murph it's like the hero workout of hero workouts. And it was just such an honor to be able to do it at the CrossFit Games. We actually did it in 2015, then we were able to redo it in 2016, which was really, really cool. Because, getting to do a workout for fallen soldiers is just, it's incredible. And now I can claim that it's back to an American because Sam Briggs won it in 2015. So it was amazing that they let us redo it in 2016, and I was able to win it. So people that don't know, Murph is a hero workout, and it starts with wearing a weight vest. Women are required to wear a 14-pound weight vest and a 20-pound weight vest for men. You run a mile, then you have to do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then run a mile. In 2016, we were able to partition, or they made us partition it. So we had to do 5 rounds of 20, 40, and 20 pull-ups, 40 push-ups, 60 air squats. For me, luckily, like my gymnastic background, I have a strong upper body. The movement women often have a hard time with is the push-ups. So luckily, like I was able to do those, not effortlessly, but faster than a lot of other girls. And I think actually the coolest part of that workout, like what I remember from it, is the announcer didn't see me coming. Like it was these other 2 girls going back and back, Catherine David Sutter and Carly Matthews. And all of a sudden, like I finished my air squats, and then I like jetted out of there, like out of the stadium to go run my mile. And all of a sudden I hear the commentator, "Oh, Kari Pearce came out of nowhere and she's the first one on the run." And I was like, kind of like sneak attack. Yeah. But then during the run, like Katrin is an amazing runner. So as I was running, I was just like in my head, because when you're competing, well, 2 things, you get $3,000 when you win an event. You also get 100 points. So as I'm doing that last mile, I was like, this hurts, but I'm like, you got this, and keeping those things like in the back of my mind. And then there's like kind of crowd along the way that are cheering you on, which was really, really cool. And then getting back into the stadium, and me and Katrin had to go down the stairs and then run across the field to the finish. And I just remember sprinting across the finish. My headband was like almost blocking my eyes. I was like, what was I even thinking? I think I was just like out of it at that moment. Yeah. But I was able to finish the workout and win the workout, which is definitely one of the top moments of my career.
Absolutely. So that makes me think of something, and that is the mental strength, the mental psychology of being a elite performer and an elite competitor, right? Especially in your role here in CrossFit, it's strictly by yourself, right? It's kind of like back to the high school gymnastics days of it's on me. So were there any things that you would do mentally to prep for competitions, or were there anything during competitions that you would try and keep focused on to, keep yourself mentally sharp as well as physically?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess this isn't like exactly related to mental, but it's like always making sure I get a good night of sleep before. Cause I feel like if I'm ever tired, then that's when like my mental game like goes off point. So it starts with that. Yeah. And then I'm a big proponent, like in gymnastics, we always did a lot of visualization. So, and my coach now is like visualization, like go through the workout once, do it, be done with it. Yeah. And so that's another thing. Then I think like, I mean, it's not like exactly like mental training and stuff, but we all work so hard in the gym every day. So when I go to the competition floor, like I know the work is done. I just have to believe in myself, and I have to stay true to whatever strategy I am doing. And that like can be really hard at some points. Like I know there's been competitions where in my mind, I see people like go fast and like too fast in the beginning. And like in my mind, I'm like, should I be going fast? And it's like, no, like you need to be mentally tough and stick with your plan, because you know your body better than anyone else, and you have a game plan for a reason. So it's not necessarily, I guess, like what people always think of as like mental or like what you're doing, but it's just like believing in yourself and believing in your training. And even like my coach, like we discuss workouts. And so it's like believing in my coach and myself, and that my training will pay off, and staying true to me.
Yeah. Well, I think one, the visualization is huge. I mean, there's tons of research that shows visualizing is sometimes as helpful as practicing, at a certain level, the actual physical movements. But the second thing I think that you hinted at, and once again, so many things in sports transcend to real life, right? Outside of sport things. And that is, sometimes you compare yourself in every facet, and it's like, well, this person might be a better runner than me, but I don't need to sprint like they're running because I know I can catch up in other aspects. And so I think, once again, in our everyday lives, we can do that too, right? I can compare my position in my job with someone else, but I'm then going to compare my personal life as well. And it's like, well, these are completely different things. So it's making sure that you can balance those.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it's with your family, it's with your job, it's with you, even like friends and stuff. There's other things in life, not just CrossFit or sports.
Yes. So in 2018, then, I believe at that point you had hired a new coach. Is that right? Or you got a new coach in 2018. So talk about the idea to switch, right? I mean, things are going well. It wasn't as if you were, getting worse. You were going from 21st to 30th or something. You were progressing, but you felt it was time to make a switch on the coaching front.
Yeah. And I think, like, as an athlete, you have to know when it's time.
Yep.
So Justin Kotler, the coach that I mostly recently worked with, was somebody that I knew from when I started doing CrossFit.
Yes.
I lived in New York City. My old coach had moved out to New Jersey to open a gym there. So I went out there for a while, and I was like, I don't like New Jersey. Like, I miss New York City. I was coaching a little bit in the city, and I loved the city. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the vibe. I loved everything that it offered. So it's like, okay, well, I want to move back to the city. And I really wasn't seeing my other coaches much. And we just didn't have like the same connection that we had just because I was farther away. And I took sixth place in 2018, was the top American for the second year. And I sat down with Justin Kotler, and I basically just told him, I was like, okay, like, I'm not necessarily happy right now.
Yeah.
And what do you think of like coaching me? And he's like, like he basically said, like, I'm really busy right now. And like, he wasn't sure if he wanted to take me on. He's like, well, what's your goal? And I was like, I want to be the next American female to stand on the podium.
Yeah.
And I'm getting goosebumps just like saying it. And I remember like the cafe we went to, I remember like where we were sitting. I like remember the conversation like it was yesterday. And he just like looked at me and he was like, let's do it. And like, this was after a 3-hour conversation, just talking about like training and working with other coaches and just like anything and everything like related to CrossFit, what I had been thinking, what I've been going through, the prior season, strengths, weaknesses, how I believed I should be training, what I believed I should be doing, listening to him, give his thoughts and everything. So it's like, I could tell he was like tempted, but still didn't want to take me on unless, he was sure that he could put in the work and that he was willing to give me the time and energy needed to get me to my end goal. And I knew like if someone was going to do it, then it was him. And he was in New York City. So it was amazing. Just like being hands-on, I would get to go train with him, like face to face. Like it would be like me and him in the gym, and he would be watching me. Like I didn't have training partners, but I feel like he was almost the same or better because he would be standing there watching. And I was like, shoot, I can't rest too much right now. Like, I got to jump back on that bar. Like, he's going to know if I'm resting too long. And so it was great. Just all the technique. And then we were just like, kind of talk about whatever, like his 2 kids, his wife, the gym, like my life, anything and everything. So it was amazing just having that athlete coach relationship, but then also like him caring about me and my family and me as a person, that made it so special.
Yes. So with any, I guess, goal as big as what you had, right? I mean, to finish in the podium, I mean, top 1, 2, or 3, you're already the top female in America, right? I mean, the United States, there's a lot of sacrifices that come with that. My 2020 mantra, or 2021 mantra, which I'm carrying into 2022 is you have to say no to things you want so you can say yes to the things you want most. that's a difficult task, right? We can get
Mhm.
sidetracked by so many different things. So for you, what allowed you to day in and day out keep the eye on the prize, which was, that ultimate being on the podium?
Yeah, I mean, as you said earlier in the show, I'm like the all-in kind of person. And I think like I loved college. I got, some good times out in college and everything. And then when I was competing in CrossFit, I just had this tunnel vision. Like I had one goal and I had one thing that I wanted. And everything that I did centered around this. It was just like I don't know, like it's hard to explain, but it's like when you only see like one thing. And
Yeah.
even like when I travel, like I'm like, okay, when I'm booking my flight, because I got to make sure I get in my, 4 hours of training or whatever. I'm like, okay, the last flight of the day, or I can fly early and get it in there. But I usually like to train before I travel. Like that's not something a lot of people think about. Or even like before I travel, the first thing I do is I contact a gym and like, what's your open gym hours? And I figure out everything like centered around my training, like even eating, like, okay, like, am I going to get like food delivered to me? Is there going to be a kitchen? Like it was like, and even like planning trips, like I said no to so many trips. Like I finally made it back to my college 10-year reunion because we had Big Ten champions the last 4 years. Like all the other girls went to basically everyone. I didn't because I'm like, no, like I need to be training. That's going to get in the way of training. Yeah. So it was basically like, I didn't go out. I like went home for Christmas. I even missed a Christmas, like to go because I had to train at I had to train back because I went to Dubai and then Wadapalooza. So it was just like everything is centered around this, and you have to be very selfish. And I knew that I was, but I knew I had a goal that I wanted to get to, and I didn't want to have regrets. Like later in life, I can travel, I can do whatever. Like if I'm going to do this, this is the time. And I want to make sure that I do everything humanly possible to try and make it happen.
Yes. So 2020, it's a crazy year. But it also provides some good things coming down the pipeline for Kari. So talk a little bit about 2020 as a year for you.
Yeah. So 2020 started, I went to Wadapalooza and competed there, which is a competition in Miami in February. It was amazing. Then right after, I actually went to Puerto Rico for a little vacation and did a seminar. And then I came back and there was this thing, called COVID that was like slowly going around. Yeah. I was supposed to do a competition in March. And the guy, like the head guy, like I remember him emailing us and he's like, don't worry, like everything is still as planned. We'll be fine. Next day, NBA shuts down. He's like, nah, we're fine. We're fine. And then you get the email that's like, oh, sorry, like West Coast Classic is being postponed. You're like, okay, like I'll probably be a couple weeks, whatever. No. And then like, a little more time rolls around, like the Olympics get canceled. CrossFit though is like, no, like we're going to have the games. It doesn't matter what's going on. Like we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And like, you're just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then like, I remember like a little bit of time, like I got so unmotivated because I'm like, the Olympics got canceled. Like we're not going to have the games. There's not going to be a competition. Like, why am I training so hard? Especially like I was doing things like by myself in my apartment in New York. I had a skier, an assault bike, and a biker, and like some dumbbells and things. I'm like, why am I training so hard? Like, we're not going to have the games. We're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah.
And then I remember Justin Butler, my coach, contacting me and being like, me and my family are thinking of moving to Las Vegas because gyms were shut down. He owned a gym. Like New York wasn't a good place to be, just as far as like all the COVID cases and everything. And the next day I was like, sure, count me in. I'll move with you. So we took the ride. I was like, there's nothing holding me in New York at this point, especially with the gym being closed. So I was like, why not? Why not set myself up for a new adventure? I thought I had another year or two in New York, but it wasn't the most ideal place to train, especially being in the city. Yeah. Gyms were small, like it traveling like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to Justin's gym to work with him. And it was like, I had been to Vegas. I had been to the Strip. I didn't know life existed outside of the Las Vegas Strip. Yeah. But I was willing to take a chance. He's going to move his family there. Like, it must be good. It's got to be a decent
spot. Yeah, it's got to be a decent spot.
So we ended up making the move at the end of June, like beginning of July. I literally like packed up my apartment. We hired a moving company for all of our stuff. moved it out, bought a one-way flight. I didn't have a car because you don't have a car in New York.
Yeah.
And a friend of it, like Ryan Elrod, the guy who we actually moved here for, who Justin coached, had a friend who was like, oh yeah, you can live with me till you find a house. So I stayed with her for 10 days. Then I found a house to rent, moved, bought a car, all the above. And I had Ryan Elrod as my training partner. Still, we didn't know when there was going to be a CrossFit Games. Like, it kept getting pushed back. So first they're like, oh, it's going to be normal time, end of July. And then they're like, nah, beginning of August, end of August, beginning of September, end of September. So it was an amazing year. It just like that it actually ended up happening.
Yeah.
But as an athlete and talking to all the other athletes, it just takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, like, I don't even know if this thing's going to happen. How am I supposed to keep myself motivated? It's one thing when I know there's a finite deadline to this thing I'm training for. It's another thing when I thought it was going to happen and then it gets pushed back. And then I didn't even think it was going to happen, but I need to keep going.
Yeah. And especially like being an athlete, because it's like you're trying to peak at the right time. And so it's like, okay, I'm trying to peak for the end of July. Okay, now we need to switch it to August. Okay, now we need to switch it to the end of August. And during this whole time, like, things weren't happening in person. So you're like, okay, well, how is it going to happen online? But CrossFit's like, no, like, we don't want to have it online. Like, we're going to have, so you're like, okay, well, now it's going to be pushed back even farther. And what about like international people? Like, what about people in Australia or in Europe? Like, what are you going to do? So yeah, you're trying to like train and stay peaked for this long period of time. But then thank goodness, like, it's amazing that CrossFit ended up figuring out like this stage 1 versus stage 2. We're going to have stage 2 at the ranch, like the top 5 girls and the top 5 guys are going to qualify and be able to compete there. But you're going to have to do the qualification round, stage 1 at a gym. You can't train with or you can't work out with anybody else. But luckily me and 2 other girls did it at the same location, but we had to go one girl, another. So Bethany Shadburn and Danielle Brandon and myself met in Sacramento, California to do these workouts. And you had to do the workouts in your time zone. And we were Pacific time zone. So we were the very last group to go. Got
it. Wow. So how did that end up for you?
Well, it ended up very, very well. But I was like, I have to give huge props to the 2 ladies that I did it with, especially Bethany Shadburn. So the way we agreed before we left, like, me and my coach were like, okay, if we're going to go do it with these other girls, because I kind of knew them. Now they moved to Las Vegas, so I know them very well.
Yeah.
But I didn't know them quite that well then. And we're like, well, it has to be fair. Like, we each have to take a turn going first, second, and third. Like, you can't be the same. Like, it can't be the same girl goes third all the time.
Right.
Because then they see the other 2 go. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to go first on the final day. Like, I can't remember the order, but Bethany went first the first day. Danielle went first the second day. Then I was supposed to go first the third day. And I don't remember exactly what place. I think I was in like 9th or 10th place going into the final day. And Bethany was like, Kari, like, potentially has a shot of making the top 5. So I will go first. And then I remember Danielle being like, okay, like, I'll go second, to give her like 2 times, like, because they're kind of different athletes, to give her another time to beat, or like to give her some guidelines. So I'm still like so thankful for her, because there was a max handstand hold, and I beat Danielle by 1 second. And if I wouldn't have beat her, like, I actually thought I like beat her by 3 or 4, but in the end I beat her by 1 second. And if I would have like come down 2 seconds earlier, then I wouldn't have gone. Like, it was crazy that it was just that close in the scores. And you didn't know until like the final standings showed up. So at the end of that third day, I remember just like sitting, like, we were the last ones to go too. And it was like 2 hours, or maybe it was even an hour. It felt like eternity.
Yeah.
Until you ended up finding out if you actually made it. And I remember like sitting in front of the TV, and like one of the guys who worked for CrossFit, like, you know, he's like, are you guys going to stay for the awards, or are you going to leave? And I was like, I think we're just going to stay here and hang out. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, in the grand scheme of things, he was like, yeah, I actually asked because I knew you got 5th, but like, he wouldn't tell us that he knew, because he wanted to make sure like he caught my reaction on film.
Yeah.
And so I remember like sitting watching it, and Kara Saunders, it showed that she had won the workout. And I remember after that, Justin, like, he looked at the TV and he goes, "That's it. We didn't make it. You got 6th. Kari beat you. That's it." Like, and started like walking around, and I was just like, oh man. 'Cause it's like to be like that close and like miss it. But then he ended up miscalculating the points in his head. So I was like sitting staring at the TV, like just thinking like I'm not going to be, and then like, they're like, and the final standings, like, is it Saunders? Is it Barnhart? Or is it Pearce? And then it like, I already have like goosebumps just like talking about this. And then it popped up like my name in 5th place. And I actually, I was like the last one to know. I was like, everyone's like, why were you so delayed on your reaction? I was like, because in my head, I had Justin like, he was like, you 6, that's it. So I like didn't even like, it was like when you're like staring, but you actually don't see anything.
Right. I know they're going to announce a name, but it's not mine. So whatever. Yeah.
And then everyone started like screaming and celebrating. And then I like looked and I was like, and it was, it's like one of those, like, you don't have words to describe. And like, luckily, like the CrossFit guy, like caught it on film and like started like going like this. And I remember like Justin, like being behind me and then like coming around and like in the front to give me like this hug. And he actually like went down on one knee to like stand up. And like his wife was joking, like, he didn't even go down on one knee for me.
Oh, CrossFit marriage.
Yeah, right. I was like, you know, we're going to the CrossFit Games. There's only 5 athletes that do that, you know? But yeah, and then I just remember like I started like crying and stuff, but like happy tears, of course, just especially when it's that unexpected. And I think because it had been such a crazy year of like emotional roller coaster for everybody. But yeah, like it's similar, like that stands out in my memory. Like it was yesterday, just where I was sitting, like Danielle was right here, Bethany, like, yeah, it was amazing.
Well, then, so now we're in the top 5. So we got stage 2, right? I mean, so all this excitement, all this momentum, enthusiasm, but now I got to go compete again. Like I got to go do this again.
Yeah. And like, I mean, like training for it, you're like, well, it's like, it depended on the day. Like some days I'm like, well, I got 5th in the qualifier. So the worst I can do like is 5th. I go in and get 5th and you know, that's what but it's like, no, like this is your chance. Like this is your opportunity. You have your eyes set on the podium. Like you said, you've had so many sacrifices. You moved across the country. Like, this is it. Like, you have to go for it. And, you know, and being a competitor, like, you know, you're going there to do your best. You're not going to, like, be like, oh, yeah, 5th place. That's great. You want to, like, go and give it your best.
Absolutely. So how did that go?
It was really good. I mean, it was definitely so weird, like, only having 5 girls and 5 guys versus the 40, but it was like such an incredible experience, like getting to have Justin right there on all of the events. Like each of the athletes had their own warm-up area, so it was cool, like getting to talk to the athletes a little bit more. I remember the first bus ride to the ranch, so everybody was super nervous and it's like super quiet on the bus. And then coming back, like everybody opened up and like started talking. So it's like, dude, like there's 5 of us, like we're each honored to have like made it there, you know. And it was just like this special opportunity that we got to celebrate with each other. And obviously, like people are always like, oh, like you get along with everyone. I'm like, you respect what everybody does because you know the sacrifices that you make and you know what you go through and training on the days where you're tired and exhausted and you don't want to do it, but you push through. And it's just, you all have that in common. So it's like, you just respect everybody else for what they do and for who they are. But then, having Justin being right there in some of the events, like the CrossFit Total, so like the strength event, and being able to ask him, you know, what weight should I use next? Or like there was a biking and rope climb event, and just having him there and like hearing him scream. But the top moment of it all, which I think a lot of people remember, and I've heard a lot of people say it's one of the top moments in CrossFit Games history, is when I won Atalanta. So people that don't know what that workout is, I'll start. Dave Castro, the head of the director of the CrossFit Games, waited to announce the final workout. And he's like, this is going to be the hardest final we've ever had in CrossFit Games history. So we all like, you know, get to the ranch. We're waiting for this announcement. And he's like, okay, so the workout, it's going to be the hero workout of hero workouts. Okay, Murph, got it. And which is, you know, what we talked about earlier. And then he's like, but we're taking that middle part out. So the pull-ups, the handstand push-ups, and the squats, and we're throwing it out. And then we're putting in Mary, but we're doing 100, 200, 300. So it was with that weight vest, a mile run, the 14 pounds for the women, 20 pounds for the guys, 100 handstand push-ups, 200 pistols, which are single leg squats. So 100 on each side, 200 total, and then 300 pull-ups, and then a mile run.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'm like tired, like thinking about it.
And I was just about to say, my back is starting to get tight right now.
Yeah. And my hands hurt. But me and my coach just like looked at each other like, okay, like,
yeah,
this is yours for the taking. I was like, that morning, it was a swim workout, and then there was a sprint workout, which are two of not my strength. So I was in 5th place, but I knew if I did well, I could bump myself up to 3rd place. And so it's kind of like, this is a workout that's great for you on paper, but still you have to go through it, and you have to do it, and you have to go through the pain, and you're with these other incredibly fit athletes, and you have to beat all of them.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do it though, like, this is the workout to do it. So I remember just like from the minute he was like, okay, that's it. Like, warm up. You guys have like half hour, whatever it is. Then just being like in the zone, I'm thinking just about like this one thing. And that was obviously winning the event, because that's what I had to do. And then from the 3, 2, 1, go, it was just like tunnel vision, something I've never felt before in my life. And actually, like, I started running really fast. And like I said before, I'm not the best runner. And like, after like we went around a turn, I had to like look back and make sure everybody was still there, because I was like, am I by myself? Did I false start? Like, I don't think I did. But I just like started out hot, and everyone's like, you started out so hot for such a long workout. I was like, well, I knew I had to get ahead on the run, because like other girls would be faster later on. Right. The handstand push-ups would be good, but I basically 3, 2, 1, go. One, like the first half of the run, then Haley passed me, but then I passed her on the handstand push-ups, and then was able to keep going. It hurt bad, but in the back of my mind, it's like, after this, you get to rest as long as you want, because it was the last event of the season. And even on the run, like, Katrin was catching up to me on the pull-ups. So right after I finished my pull-ups, I just darted out of there and I ran for my life. And people are like, I don't know how you ran so fast. And I was like, because I knew like that was it. You know, if I was going to make the podium, I didn't want any regrets. I had to do everything humanly possible. And hearing Justin just scream for me the whole way through, and then crossing the finish line, and just like having him right there, and then seeing Katrin finish, and then Tia finished after her, and then Haley, who was in 3rd place, finished after her. And after I saw her cross, I like just looked at Justin, and I was like, does that mean I made the podium? And he just like looks at me with this smile. He didn't even say it. He just like looks at me with a smile. And I was like, and then I like just like started like waterfalling tears, like tears of joy, you know, like, cause it's like, oh, like it's real and it happened, and everything that you've done like prior to this is all worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you have, but have you ever just let it sink in? I mean, the fittest woman in America, the 3rd fittest woman in the world. I mean, do you ever just think about that for a minute? Like, that's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you. And probably not enough. Like, everyone talks, because people always like brag about it and talk about it, and you're like, yeah, it's cool, it's awesome. But I probably need to like just like sit and think more, because I actually have like my awards up like in my living room or whatever, like my belt that says like 3rd place and things, and my medal and stuff. And it's like, and you just like say it, you don't like actually think like on this planet, like, you know, there's
yeah.
Or like in this, like, yeah, it's crazy, but it's, you know, years and years and years of work. Yes. But I mean, I get the right to brag, and it's something, like I say, it's something that nobody can ever take away from me. 4-time fittest American female, and 2020, the 3rd fittest woman on earth. Like, it's something that like, as long as I live, like nobody can ever take that away, which is just incredible.
Yes. Well, of course, for Kari, as you guys have started picking up in the theme of her story, is that she excels at something, and then something piques her interest, and then she's going to really dive into that. And so you're clearly crushing the fitness game, and you decide, you know what, maybe I would like to help other people get in shape and do things. And so once again, we create this Power Abs. And so talk a little bit about what all goes into that. We're going to attach her profile on here and her website. And let me tell you, the before and afters are crazy. So talk a little bit about what goes into this and how it came to be.
Yeah. So it started in 2018.
Yeah.
Power Abs specifically was December 2018.
Yeah.
And I was approached by a gentleman who is a very intelligent businessman, and has been doing business for 26 years. And basically he specializes in intellectual property and like, building businesses around people that he thinks, could potentially have some sort of business. So he emailed me, and he lived in New York. So we sat down for a couple hours in Lincoln Center. And at first it was supposed to be like something related to CrossFit Gymnastics. He was doing CrossFit, wanted to learn some handstand push-ups. So reached out with that. And he's like, well, who better to ask than, the fittest American woman, this
Absolutely.
lady, this girl who's great at handstand push-ups and great at being upside down. And we ended up coming out with like a pull-up program. We started on the gymnastics path. Well, his assistant was like, my husband is obsessed with your abs. Like, we need an ab program. And then the gentleman that I work with, Larry, was like, yeah, I remember the first meeting, like you said, you get a lot of compliments on your abs. And I was like, yeah. And so between the two, like, they're like, we need to have an abs program. And I remember like where I was sitting when it happened, like, they're like, okay, well, what do you think about creating an abs program? I was like, that's genius. Like, I would love it. I mean, especially because I, got my degree in movement science. Then I had been personal training for a bit, had my gymnastic background, had been doing CrossFit. And so like, it's just the combination of it all, like having that knowledge and then like applying like different movements and things to myself, I think was like the perfect recipe to create this Power Abs. And I remember Larry being like, do you think you can do it in 10 minutes? And I was like, yes. Like, if you make it intense, and like Power Abs is very intense. People are like, I thought it was 10 minutes. Like, it was going to be easy. I was like, nobody ever said, I did not say that. I was like, it is 10 minutes. It is a hard, intense 10 minutes, but it's worth it. And you, like, anyone can find time because there's no equipment needed. All you need is a floor. You need 10 minutes. Like, that's it. And so, that started in December 2018. We're like, this is like cool to help other people, because I wanted to with the gymnastics aspect. But I was like, well, like abs and core strength are huge, whether it's CrossFit or, I mean, now recently, especially, like, we've had a lot of people who've reduced lower back pain, or if they're just like moms and whatever, they're like, I'm just thankful I can fit it in. Like, I have time to fit in some time for myself, fitness, like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And so, we've been able to grow very rapidly. And now we're up to 14 programs. We have different Power Abs programs. We have summer Power Abs, extreme Power Abs for people that want super challenge. Then people were requesting glutes. So we have power glutes, power legs, summer power arms. And then most recently, people wanted like something cardio related, high intensity. So I was like, well, because of CrossFit and I do like Metcons, I'm like, we should do some like HIIT training. So we have FIT, which is basically power HIIT, which is 10 minutes as well. There's equipment free, or there's a workout with or with dumbbells. And then most recently now is FIT strength. And we have an amazing Power Abs community, like a Facebook page that has over 73,000 people in the community, which is just so amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that's really cool is, fitness and personal physique is definitely a confidence booster or a confidence, detractor for people, right? Gosh, I wish I looked like I used to. And you're giving people the ability to gain confidence back. Not that we should take it all from our physical appearance, right? But there is that sense of like, I feel good about the way I look relative to the way I used to look or how I was looking. So that's a really powerful thing that you're doing. Now, like we said earlier, obviously you are all in on something, and it's tough to be all in on two different things. Right? It's tough to say, I'm going to work out 4 hours a day, continue my CrossFit. It's tough to then say, I'm also going to be able to put 10 hours a day into a business. So it kind of came to a, rock in a hard place and a fork in the road where you said, I feel like I've accomplished a lot in this realm, and now I want to transition into this, putting more time and effort into the new venture. So talk about that. I'm sure it was not an easy decision. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's, it was like back and forth a lot. But in 2018, when I started talking to Larry about, you know, potentially doing a business and stuff. I was like, to be honest, like, I think I have about 3 more years left competing. And then I was like, I basically need to figure out, you know, what's going to be next after that.
Yeah.
So I feel very fortunate, you know, that we were able to start Power Abs. It was about 3 years ago, and build it while I was still competing. And for me, like, it's been amazing just seeing the transformation, seeing the before and afters. And I like actually like felt content, like making the decision. Everyone's like, man, I'm sure it was really hard. And I was like, it just like felt right. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
there's like sometimes in your life, like things just fall into order.
Yep.
And it just like, I've been thinking about it for a while, even actually after like the 2020 season, because I podiumed, like I did what I wanted to do. And then like I talked to my coach, I'm like, but I'm still having fun. And he's like, yeah, as long as you're having fun, like keep doing it.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, like I'm going to continue to train. Like, this is fun. But then like, also, like you said, like they're like in the back of my mind, I don't like splitting between two things. Like, if I want to do something, I want to do it really well. Like, I felt very fit and everything, but there just like wasn't that same like mental like hunger that was there before. And I'm like, honestly too, like I've been, as I said earlier, like I've been so selfish, just having to train so much and like not, you know, being out there and doing things for other people. Like, I feel like I just like took so much from like my coach and from like doctors and from like people. Like, I just like took because, you know, when you are competing, you have this amazing team behind you. Everybody sees you, but there's so many other people and other things that go into play that people don't see.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm 32, so I'm not like old, but I'm also not young. And it's like, I was at a point where I'm like, I'm ready to like I was giving back before, but I'm like, I'm ready to like take this to a new level and go all in for the business and, you know, see how many people we can affect and how many lives we can continue to change.
Absolutely. Well, Kari, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story and all the pivotal moments that have led you to where you're at. To your point, you are not old. You are 32. The amazing things that you're going to continue to do. I'm excited to follow your journey. And the one thing you got to promise me is that over the course of the next few years, we'll stay in contact. I'll get to have you on the show again in 3 years when the Facebook group is not 70,000, it's 170,000, and all the new different workout programs you have going on then.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun, and I hope people enjoy this.
You betcha. Thanks, Kari.